Welcome to MindBank Audios, where every listen makes your mind richer. Fear and anxiety are natural human emotions, but when they exceed their limits, they become an obstacle to an individual's life and psychological well-being. This book, considered one of the most prominent in the field of behavioral psychology, is not just an academic analysis of these emotions, but a practical guide for those seeking to free themselves from them. The author, Dr. Isaac M. Marks, draws on his deep experience in behavioral psychotherapy to provide the reader with clear methods to understand the causes of anxiety, how to deal with it, and how to break free from its vicious cycle, based on the latest scientific studies and real-life experiences. If you suffer from fear or know someone who does, this book is your companion on the journey of healing and a beacon that guides you to tranquility. Chapter 1. What is anxiety and fear? Deep within the human soul lie complex emotions that are sometimes difficult to express in words. Among these emotions, fear and anxiety sit at the top of the list, as they are the most influential feelings on human behavior and thought. There is no one who has not felt fear one day, whether it was a child afraid of the dark, an adult afraid of failure, or an old person afraid of sickness or death. But when does this natural feeling turn into an obstacle that hinders life and curbs willpower? Fear, in its essence, is an instinctive response that nature has instilled in humans to protect them from dangers. When an imminent danger approaches, the heart rate accelerates, the body becomes alert, the pupils dilate, and attention sharpens. All of this happens in a fleeting moment that gives us a chance to escape or defend ourselves. This biological response, known as the fight or flight response, is part of the survival system in living creatures. Anxiety is close to fear, but differs in its nature. Anxiety does not need a specific danger to appear. Rather, it is a feeling of apprehension, a fear of something that may never happen. It is a fear of the future, of the unknown, of possibilities. It is a continuous thought of, what if, even when there is no reason for such thinking. Anxiety lives inside the mind, but it also affects the body. An anxious person never finds peace of mind. They overthink and exhaust themselves with matters that are not worth it, but they cannot stop. They feel as if something bad is inevitably going to happen, even if there is no evidence for it. This mental tension is reflected in the body, causing the person to feel numbness, chest tightness, a lump in the throat, or stomach upset. Many people confuse anxiety and fear, but the fundamental difference between them is that fear is linked to a present and realistic danger, while anxiety is a response to anticipated future fears that may be exaggerated or baseless. Fear can end when the threatening situation ends, but anxiety can continue indefinitely until it becomes part of a pattern of thinking and behavior. Anxiety is not an entirely bad feeling, it is part of human nature and can sometimes be useful. It pushes us to prepare, pay attention, and be cautious. But when it inflates and becomes a constant obsession, it hinders the ability to make decisions and reduces the quality of life. Anxiety often begins in childhood, when a child experiences feelings of separation or sees their parents' behaviors full of fear and anxiety. It can develop over time due to the accumulation of painful experiences, psychological traumas, high expectations, or even due to genetic factors that affect the brain chemistry. A person who lives in a state of chronic anxiety feels as if their body and mind never know rest. Sleep becomes difficult, psychological comfort seems distant, concentration fades, and thinking becomes a constant battleground of possibilities and doubts. It is at this point that it becomes necessary to understand this internal enemy and recognize its methods and deceits. Many people do not realize they are suffering from anxiety. They think this tension is normal or a weakness in their personality. But the truth is that anxiety is a psychological disorder with a precise scientific explanation that can be treated or lived with through effective and proven methods. Understanding is the first step towards freedom. To understand what is happening inside you, to realize that these feelings have a cause and that you are not alone in feeling them, is the beginning of the path to balance and tranquility. This book was written for you, to illuminate the path of understanding and to provide you with the tools you need to live your life without being a prisoner of fear or a hostage to anxiety. In the upcoming chapters, you will learn how anxiety turns into a real problem, what its types are, and how you can begin the journey of freeing yourself from it. But for now, always remember that anxiety does not define you or determine your value. It is merely a symptom that you can overcome whenever you are ready for understanding and change.
Chapter 2. How Fear Works Inside Us. Fear is an integrated psychological and physical experience that is triggered when a person faces a situation they consider a threat or danger, whether that threat is real or imagined. To understand fear accurately, we must delve into how it interacts within the brain and body, and how the emotional and physiological response to this feeling, which has accompanied humans since the beginning of their evolution, is formed. When the mind perceives a threat, a region called the amygdala immediately sends signals to other parts of the brain, especially to the autonomic nervous system. This alert leads to a series of rapid physical changes, an increase in heart rate, a rise in blood pressure, muscle tension, and pupil dilation. All these changes are aimed at preparing the body to respond, either by escaping or by confronting. This is known as the fight or flight reaction. However, fear is not always the result of a direct, real danger. In many cases, our negative thoughts and perceptions about the future are what trigger this feeling, which is called anxiety. Anxiety is the constant internal face of fear, where there is no clear danger in the present moment, but fear is formed from the anticipation of a potential future danger. And because our minds are capable of imagining thousands of scenarios, we can drown in endless waves of anxiety even though we are physically safe. Chapter 3. The Deep Roots and Causes of Fear. Deep within every person, there is an old fear that has been forming since childhood. Fear is not something we only acquire from current situations. Sometimes it is an accumulation from the past, from moments of helplessness where we felt weak, or from experiences we did not know how to interpret. From the moment we are born, our minds begin to monitor everything that is threatening. A child who hears screaming, sees an angry face, or is left alone in the dark may not forget this scene in their subconscious, even if their conscious mind does not remember it. These small but repeated experiences form what is known as foundational fear. Then we grow up and begin to realize new forms of threats: failure in school, rejection by friends, losing a loved one, or even disappointment in ourselves. All these experiences create accumulated layers of fear, some of which are apparent and some of which are buried deep, appearing as chronic anxiety or continuous avoidance. Fear does not always stem from a real danger. More often, it is a product of our thoughts and perceptions. The mind interprets events in a negative way based on past experiences. For example, if you stumble during a presentation in front of an audience, that experience might plant a fear of public speaking, even though you are well prepared later. Herein lies the danger of fear, not in its existence, but in the way we interpret and respond to it. Some people learn from difficult experiences and rebuild themselves with strength, while others collapse from a single experience because they interpreted it as the end of the world. Other deep causes of fear include strict parenting that links mistakes to severe punishment, societal values that impose perfection and fear of failure, and distorted self-images such as "I don't deserve it," "I will always fail," or "people will laugh at me." What is more dangerous is that untreated fear turns into a habit. It becomes an automatic reaction to any new situation. Instead of trying, we retreat. Instead of speaking, we remain silent. And so we keep ourselves prisoners in a cage of illusion. But the beautiful thing is that the roots of fear can be pulled out. Not easily, but with persistence and understanding. When we bravely face our old experiences, honestly contemplate the causes of our anxiety, and change the way we interpret events, the first steps towards freedom begin. Understanding is the first step towards healing. When we understand that our fear did not arise out of nothing, but from experiences, memories, and interpretations, we stop blaming ourselves and begin to rebuild our relationship with ourselves with more compassion and awareness.
Chapter 4. How our mind deceives us when we're afraid. When we are afraid, we don't see the truth as it is. Our mind begins to exaggerate negative possibilities and draw dark scenarios that may never happen. Suddenly, fear becomes the only interpreter of everything. A simple word from someone is understood as an insult. A passing situation seems like a threat. The future turns into a trap. These mental deceptions are not a mistake on our part, but are part of the nature of the human brain. When it feels threatened, even if the danger is not real, it sounds the alarm, closes the doors of logic, and opens the windows for escape or attack. But the problem is that most of our fears today are not lions in the jungle, but messages on the phone, thoughts about failure, or anxiety about rejection. The mind confuses real and imagined danger, which is why we need to train ourselves to stop and ask a simple question. Is this fear real? Is something truly threatening my life, or am I just thinking of the worst-case scenarios? One of the most famous mental tricks of fear is overgeneralization. If you fail once, your mind tells you that you will always fail. If one person disappoints you, your mind tells you that everyone will disappoint you. This unfair generalization makes us live in a wide cage of caution and anxiety. Another trick is mind reading. We believe we know what others are thinking, so we become afraid of their looks or avoid confrontation without any evidence. A fleeting thought becomes a reality in our minds, and we act based on it as if it were an undeniable fact. But the truth is, most of what we fear never happens. The more we understand our way of thinking, the less influence fear has on us. Meditation, calm thinking, and writing down fears are effective ways to dismantle these deceptions. Fear is not the enemy. Our way of interpreting it is what weakens or strengthens us. Chapter 5. The fear of failure. One of the most common and destructive types of fear is the fear of failure. This fear not only prevents us from trying, but also makes us judge ourselves in advance as if we have already failed before we even begin. The fear of failure often arises from an environment that links achievement with love and success with acceptance. From childhood, we were rewarded for high grades and punished for mistakes, which planted within us the idea that a mistake is a disgrace and that failure is the end. But the truth is that failure is an integral part of any success. There is no successful person who has not failed dozens of times before achieving what they wanted. Every great story begins with an attempt, is punctuated by setbacks, and is crowned with persistence. The fear of failure makes us exaggerate the outcomes, be afraid of what others will think, and run away from any adventure. We think, what if they laugh at me? What if I don't succeed? What if I lose everything? But we forget that the real failure is not trying at all. It is not a shame to fail. The shame is to be afraid of the experience, to remain stagnant while life moves on. Failure teaches us, develops us, and reveals our weaknesses so we can become stronger. To free ourselves from this fear, we must change our perspective on failure. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, we must see it as a teacher. The more we fail, the closer we get to success. Remember, success is not in arriving, but in continuing, and the successful are no different from us. They just dared to fail more.
Chapter 6. Anxiety about the future. Anxiety about the future is the prison we cannot see. It's that voice deep inside us that whispers, what if this happens? What if I don't succeed? What if I lose the one I love? So we live tomorrow before it comes and feel its pain before it happens. This anxiety doesn't prevent problems. It prevents us from enjoying life. We stop dreaming, we stifle joy, and we forget that the future has not been written yet. We mistakenly believe that our constant thinking about negative scenarios will protect us, but in reality, it steals our present. Anxiety about the future makes us live in a constant state of readiness for danger, even when there is no actual danger. We exhaust our minds with guesswork and burden our hearts with waiting until we lose the sense of tranquility. But life is not lived in the future, but in the moment. All we have is now, this moment only. No one can guarantee tomorrow, and no one can predict it. So why do we deprive ourselves of peace in the present out of fear of the unknown? Freeing ourselves from future anxiety does not mean ignoring planning or living without a goal. It means trusting in ourselves and that God is managing things with kindness. It means believing that we will face the future with the experience of today and the strength of experience. Breathing exercises, meditation, and writing down our fears on paper and then tearing them up are all effective tools for releasing anxiety. The most important thing is to ask ourselves, is this idea about the future real or just an illusion created by fear? Calmness doesn't come from guarantees of tomorrow, but from the confidence that we are capable of dealing with what comes, when it comes. Chapter 7. The Fear of What People Think. The fear of what people think is one of the most debilitating types of fear for a person. We are afraid of being criticized, misunderstood, or being laughed at by others without our knowledge. So we begin to act, to hide our true selves, to say what we don't mean, just to gain acceptance. But no matter how hard we try, we will never be able to please everyone, as every person looks from their own perspective and judges from their own point of view. Our constant quest to please people makes us lose ourselves. The fear of what people think makes us hide our talents, suppress our feelings, and be afraid to express our opinions. We wear masks that we believe will please others, while inside we are suffocating. But what if we told the truth? What if we were just ourselves? Those who love us will stay, and those who don't, then like it were not worth us hiding ourselves for. The solution is not to completely ignore people, but to find a balance. We should listen to constructive criticism, ignore mockery, and distinguish between those who want our best and those who just want to bring us down. True freedom begins when we realize that what people think does not determine our worth, and that our inner voice is more important than all the external voices. We should live honestly for ourselves, not to please others. Remember, people forget, they change, and they are more preoccupied with their own affairs than yours. So don't let your life be held hostage to what others think. Chapter 8. The Fear of Failure. The fear of failure is the biggest obstacle between us and our dreams. It is the wall we build ourselves in front of every new idea, every project, every bold step. We don't fail because we are incapable, but because we are afraid to try. The fear of failure makes us overcalculate, exaggerate mistakes, and be ashamed of the experience. We believe that failure is the end, while in reality, it is the beginning of a deeper understanding and a maturing experience. There is no success without failure. Even the greatest of the great fell many times before they rose. The only difference is that they did not surrender to fear. They learned from the mistake, adjusted their course, and continued on their path. Failure is not a defect, it is a lesson. And the real lesson is to realize that a mistake does not negate our value or diminish our potential. We are not measured by the number of times we fall, but by the number of times we get back up. The fear of failure teaches us to seek perfection, which is impossible. Perfection is an illusion, but progress is possible. Let's try, even if we fail, because trying brings us closer, and fear keeps us away. Chapter 9. The Fear of Losing Loved Ones. One of the greatest fears that resides in people's hearts is the fear of losing those we love. It is that invisible pain that makes us love cautiously, connect with fear, and think 1,000 times before we let anyone get close to our souls. But love is not complete without risk. We cannot truly love while holding fear in one hand and emotion in the other. We either love with all that we are, or we don't love at all. The fear of loss does not prevent fate, but it prevents us from enjoying the moments. It prevents us from getting closer, from expressing, from living with those we love with complete honesty. Yes, loss is painful, but nothing lasts. Not people, not relationships, not feelings. But true love leaves a mark that illuminates the darkness of the days and gives us the strength to continue. Instead of fearing loss, let's love more. Let's express, embrace, and forgive, because we never know when it will be the last time. Love is the power that remains after absence, and it is what makes life worth living despite everything. Chapter 9. The Fear of the Unknown. The fear of the unknown is like standing in a dark room where we don't know what's inside, so we assume the worst. We create monsters, crises, and tragedies in our minds that have not yet happened. This type of fear makes us love routine and be afraid of change. We prefer the pain we know to the possibility of happiness we don't know. We hold on to our lives as they are, even if they are dull, for fear of the unknown. But life is by nature unknown. No one knows what will happen tomorrow. Every day is a new unknown. We can either face it with anxiety or embrace it with hope. Stepping out of our comfort zone is painful at first, but it is the only way to grow. Renewal, adventure, and trying are all doors that open only to those who have the courage to cross into the unknown. The fear of the unknown will not disappear, but it can become a motivator instead of a barrier. We frighten ourselves when we exaggerate things, but the truth is simpler than we imagine. Always trust that God is arranging what is best for you, even if you can't see the path now, because the unknown you fear may be the most beautiful thing you have not yet imagined. Chapter 11. The Fear of What Others Think. We live in a world where the eyes of others are increasingly on our lives, as if every step we take needs the silent approval of an invisible audience. We are afraid to make a mistake, not because the mistake is harmful, but because we fear people's comments, looks, and judgments. The fear of what others think traps us in molds that don't resemble us. It makes us wear what we don't like, say what we don't mean, and walk on paths we never wanted, just to please those who don't truly know us. But the simple truth is that people forget. They don't think about us as much as we think they do, because every person is preoccupied with their own fears. Their looks do not determine our value, and their opinions do not create our identity. True freedom begins when we realize that our opinion of ourselves is the most important. We should live authentically, not artificially. We should fail in front of everyone and then get back up, because that's what makes us human. When we free ourselves from the illusion of what others think, we begin to live life as we want it, not as it is wanted for us. The eye that watches you today will forget tomorrow, but the soul you suppress will scream forever. Chapter 12. The Fear of Making a Decision. A decision on the surface seems simple, but deep down it carries responsibility, possibilities, and outcomes that we may not be able to control. That's why we are afraid to decide. We think for a long time, recalculate, wait for signs, and postpone. But hesitation doesn't prevent mistakes, it prolongs them. The fear of making a decision is, in reality, a fear of bearing the consequences. We fear regretting it, blaming ourselves later, or telling ourselves, "I wish I hadn't done it." But life is not built on wishes, but on steps. A decision, even if not perfect, is better than stagnation because it teaches us, moves us, and breaks the vicious circle of waiting. There is no perfect decision because we never have all the information. Every decision is a step toward knowledge, even if it leads to a mistake, for a mistake is not the end, but proof that you tried. Make the decision that is closest to your heart. Don't wait for perfection. Consult, think. But don't let fear paralyze you, because life rewards those who have the courage to say, "I am responsible, and I am ready."
Chapter 16. The Power of Deep Focus in Building Mental Wealth. In a world distracted by notifications and digital noise, deep focus becomes a rare currency, and the currency of the truly rich. Millionaire minds are not built on multitasking or superficiality, but on quiet sessions of complete immersion in one project, one idea, one task. The author explains how focus is not a talent, but a mental muscle that grows with practice and discipline. Through phone-free sessions, using the Pomodoro technique, or interruption-free time blocks, a person can summon their genius. Fortunes are created in moments when you are so engrossed in your work that you lose track of time.
This state, which psychologists call flow, is the gateway to creation and what produces ideas that bring millions. The rich don't have more time, they have deeper focus. Chapter 17. The mind as a filter, not a mirror. One of the biggest shifts in the mental millionaire's mindset is the realization that their mind doesn't reflect reality as it is, but rather selects what aligns with their beliefs. The mentally poor see obstacles because they are programmed to see them. The mentally rich see opportunities in the same situation because their internal programming selects what serves them. The author shows how the brain's reticular activating system, RAS, works as a filter for reality, and that changing thoughts doesn't just change what happens, but what is seen of what happens. The one who sees an opportunity in failure is the one who possesses mental wealth, and the one who sees the end in an obstacle is the one who loses before they begin. Mental programming is the root, and vision is the result, and the result creates reality. Thoughts are created internally first and then reshape what we see externally. Chapter 18. Managing energy, not time. Everyone has 24 hours, but what differs is the type of energy each person carries during those hours. The author opens a new door in thinking. Don't plan your day according to time, but according to your brain and body's energy. Don't put your most complex tasks at the end of the day, but place them when you are at your peak clarity. Take a nap as if it's an investment. Exercise as if it's a production engine. The rich don't work more, they work when they are at their peak focus. Organization isn't a calendar, but the art of timing energies. The author presents daily strategies for managing mental energy, such as getting enough sleep, reducing sugar, having periods of complete disconnection from devices, and protecting the golden hours in the morning. Energy is the real wealth, and managing it is the difference between the person who builds their wealth intelligently and the one who collapses after every small achievement. Chapter 19. The Psychology of Financial Worthiness. This chapter is one of the deepest in the book because money doesn't just come with plans, but with the deep feeling that you are worthy of it. Many people have strategies, skills, and even opportunities, but they sabotage themselves because, deep down, a voice says, "I am not worthy." The author analyzes this feeling through upbringing, social programming, and childhood experiences, and explains how the mentally poor view money as an external thing they have to beg for, while the mentally rich see it as an extension of their self-worth. To have wealth, you must see yourself as someone who deserves it. It's not enough to want money. You must feel you are the person who deals with money with confidence, spends it wisely, and invests it creatively. Worthiness is the psychological root of wealth, and it is the result of repeated ideas about competence, value, and giving.
Chapter 16. The Fear of the Unknown. Repeated chapter. The unknown is the gray area where we project all our fantasies, fears, and even nightmares. It's the door we don't know what's behind, so we sometimes choose to stay behind it instead of risking opening it. We are afraid of change because we don't know what life will be like after it. We are afraid to leave a job we hate because we don't know if we will find something better. We are afraid to travel, to love, to start over, because the unknown stands as a huge barrier in front of us. But if we think for a moment, we would find that everything beautiful in our lives was once unknown. Every relationship, every opportunity, every achievement began with a step toward what we didn't know. The unknown is not an enemy. It is the space of possibilities and the home of miracles. When we accept that we will not know everything and that this is normal, we will find comfort in the embrace of ambiguity. Let's make the unknown a companion, not an adversary, and let's move forward with confidence, not because we know the path, but because we believe we will discover it step by step. Chapter 17. The Fear of Losing Control. It is in our nature as humans to love feeling in control. We want things to be under our control, our work, our relationships, our health, and even the future that has not yet come. But life, in its changing nature, refuses to be led at a single pace. And here a hidden fear appears. What if we lose control?
The fear of losing control creates a constant tension. We remain on high alert, as if we are trying to tighten our grip on sand, and the more we press, the more it slips through our fingers. We plan meticulously, draw scenarios, and prepare for possibilities, and then we collide with an unescapable reality. Nothing is guaranteed. But what we sometimes don't realize is that the beauty of life doesn't lie in control, but in spontaneity. In trusting that we are capable of adapting even if circumstances change, and in believing that we have enough resilience within us to survive even the most chaotic moments. Complete control is an illusion. Balance, however, is to let go of what we cannot change and work on what we can. It is to take the reins of ourselves, not the circumstances around us. Only then does the fear turn into acceptance and anxiety into tranquility. Chapter 18. The Fear of Aging. Time waits for no one. Years pass and we look in the mirror and see changes we didn't notice before. Faint wrinkles, white hair, or an inner feeling that we are not who we once were. Here a new fear appears. What does it mean to grow old? Do we lose our importance, our value, our opportunities? Society sometimes feeds this fear. It glorifies youth and neglects wisdom, portraying aging as an obstacle, not a blessing. But the truth is that age is not a scoreboard of losses, but a record of experiences. Every year we live carries maturity, and every white hair hides a story. The fear of aging may make us chase youth on the surface, but true peace comes when we reconcile with the idea that time is not an adversary, but a teacher, and that life at every stage carries its own gifts. Aging does not diminish your beauty. It adds to your depth. It does not end opportunities. It opens doors you couldn't see before. So don't be afraid to grow old. Only be afraid of your years passing without truly living them. Chapter 19. The Fear of Success. Repeated chapter. It may seem strange, even contradictory, that a person would be afraid of success. Isn't success what we strive for? Isn't it the prize we chase day and night? But the deeper truth is that many people, deep down, fear success as much as they fear failure. Success is not the end of the road as some people think, but its real beginning. When you reach the top, the biggest challenge begins. Staying there, maintaining what you have built, keeping up with expectations, and pleasing others while you are in the spotlight. The fear of success comes in the form of inner doubt. Do I really deserve this? What if they discover I'm not who I appear to be? What if I fail after I succeeded? This fear leads some people to unconsciously sabotage themselves, to delay their steps, or to downplay their achievements for fear of the price of success. But what we must understand is that success is not a burden, but a beautiful responsibility. It does not mean perfection, but progress. It does not mean being the best always, but being honest with yourself at every stage. Success is not a mask that you wear, but a reflection of your effort, your patience, and your inner growth. And the fear of it can be transformed into a driving force if you redefine success for yourself. Make it a maturing experience, not a frightening one. And instead of asking, "Do I deserve success?" ask, "How can I express my success in a way that serves myself and others?" So don't let fear prevent you from reaching the top. Be the person who knows that success is not an end, but a beginning of something greater.
Chapter 20. Freedom from Fear. At the end of every path we take, we seek one feeling: freedom. Freedom from restrictions, from hesitation, from the voice of fear that resides deep within us and manipulates our dreams. For fear has never been an external enemy, but a hidden adversary that lives inside us, feeding on our doubts and growing silently when we allow it to control us. Freedom from fear does not mean its absence, but having the ability to look it in the eye without running away. It is to realize that fear does not hold the truth, but reflects our perceptions, our past, and our experiences that have not yet healed. When we face fear, we become free from its shackles, from its voice burdened with dark possibilities. Freedom from fear begins with honesty with ourselves, with the admission that yes, we are afraid, but we are also strong. We have the will, we have the awareness, and we have the choice. When we choose not to live under the influence of fear, we take the first step toward freedom. And how beautiful is the feeling of a person when they move freely, when they make their decisions from a source of inner peace, not from the dread of rejection or failure. They then become the master of their destiny, not a slave to a confused inner voice. Yes, the path is not easy, but it is worth it, because when life is lived without fear, it is lived in its full colors. We laugh from the heart, love without hesitation, venture with open hearts, and build dreams without waiting for permission. In the end, the greatest victory you can achieve in your life is to free yourself from fear and live as you have always wanted. In conclusion of this book, after we have walked together on the paths of the soul and faced the shadows of fear and learned how to rise from our psychological fragility, I invite you to always remember, fear is not defeated by strength, but by awareness and compassion for yourself. You can start anew at every moment. If you found this book useful, if it touched your heart, and if you felt that it contained something that could change your way of thinking and your view of yourself, then I invite you with all my heart to subscribe to our channel. MindBank Audio, our mission is to inspire, guide, and help you grow every day. If you enjoyed this, make sure to hit subscribe and become part of the MindBank Audio family. Together, we'll keep building richer minds.